Welcome to Unresolved, the podcast for customer experience leaders by customer experience leaders. In this podcast, we're going to focus on how different companies view and measure their customer experiences, how they handle churn, and then we'll dive deeper into the unresolved issues that they're facing today. We're specifically calling this podcast Unresolved because so many CX leaders are testing with AI, they're rebuilding with AI as the foundation, and every one of us have to reinvent everything we've ever known about customer experience systems and processes. You're not alone, so let's do this journey together. Today, we have Robert Cabral, the head of customer experience for Runway, an applied AI research company that builds video and world models. And Runway is used by filmmakers, studios, and creative teams to make content with AI. Robert, welcome to Unresolved.
Thank you. Really excited to be here.
I'm so eager to dive into your story. For those that haven't heard of Runway, they were early in the creative AI video journey when people still didn't even know how to write prompts. And I remember 2 years ago, back in 2024, I took a picture of a marathon, and it was like a head-on shot of a marathon, and there was a person in a chicken suit. I explicitly wanted to see what would Runway do with that detail of the feathers. And I was honestly blown away. Again, this was 2 years ago. I can't even imagine now. But like 2 years ago, it was getting the detail of that chicken running and the feathers running. And it just blew me away. And it's amazing what the product was and how it has evolved, I would say, past any other video creation model that's out there today.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I might be a little bit biased, but the thing that's really cool about Runway is that it is a research lab first. So we're building our own models. We're doing the research. We're fine-tuning things. So 2 years ago, honestly, if you were to look at the stuff today versus 2 years ago, you'd probably laugh at how much things have improved. So, I mean, I would love to take a stab at that chicken suit guy and run him through Runway one more time. Working in AI, it's all about change and adapting as a business, but that also applies to the entire customer experience team and being extremely nimble when it comes to that.
Before we jump in too deep, I'll start with some grounding questions, and that way the audience can get to know you, and we'll get to know how your team is using AI, what worked, what hasn't worked, and then I want to spend some time on what's unresolved. So just to kind of open things up, tell me about the team. What's the size, the structure? What does your team actually own?
Yeah. So we recently rebranded the team from customer support to customer experience. And the reason for that, even though it is a pretty small team, is that we've broadened the scope of what we do. And a lot of it is because of the AI that we've built out in the infrastructure. So we have consumer support, enterprise support, we have customer education, and most recently we have a scaled success division, which is basically any enterprise accounts under a certain threshold that get a different level of hands-on account management and support than maybe some of our other customers, but we want to make sure that we scale that as the business grows. So like I said, it is a pretty small team, and we're being very intentional about that. And I know some companies and some leaders try to boast about, my team is like 30 people or 500 people. I've actually never had a huge team, and I like it that way, doing the most with the people that we have. And AI has really enabled us to, I think in terms of headcount, we haven't really grown the team in the entire year and a half that I've been here. We obviously started off with our ticketing system, and despite being part of an AI company, we didn't jump right into AI support. Part of it was really understanding what are we doing well right now? How can we improve that? How can we double down on that? And then if we do move forward with AI, what sort of infrastructure do we need to set up before that? And documentation and education is a big part of that. So that's why we have one person, Haley Mills, best in the business, who builds out our documentation, our guides, super thorough. And that has been sort of what's really helped us stand out in terms of the AI support experience, in my opinion.
That's great. I mean, you're leaning right into my next question, which is when you're evaluating how to build an operation for customer experience, how do you think about what belongs in your tech stack. I mean, you're talking about Haley is like in documentation. So, and even
Yeah.
you're talking about not scaling the team so much, but really you're scaling their skill set.
Yeah. So I think before even the tech stack, just hiring the right people is super important.
Absolutely.
Everyone on my team has some sort of creative background. And, whether that could be working with creative tools like Runway, but we also have someone on the team that has a dance background. And that just that appreciation for the arts, I think, is helps put ourselves in the customer's shoes, what they appreciate. Whenever you talk about art versus AI, there's some conflicting views there. And I see Runway as really a creative's tool. And that's what it is. It's a tool. It's not a creative itself. Um, and in terms of the technology that we use, it's also a means to what we need to achieve. So the way that I approach it, the way that I think about it is going back to the principles. What is it that we want to achieve? What is our ultimate goal? And breaking down what are those smaller, more tactical things, and broader strategic things that we need from an AI company. And one thing that's a little bit less tangible, at least in the review process, is working with vendors, with companies that are as forward thinking as your company, as quick as your company. AI, we're making updates sometimes on a daily basis, and that impacts what our needs are from our vendors. And we want to be able to work with an organization that grows with us, basically. So that's a very broad way to answer your question. But taking a little bit of a step back, one thing that I found really important the second time around going through the vendor evaluation was really bringing in someone from our engineering team in the entire process and understanding, we are launching these things on a daily basis. What do we need from a technical standpoint? I'm not a technical person, so there's only so much that I can evaluate for on my own. So
Yeah.
it's really important, whether you're a technology company like Runway or maybe another type of company, to bring in the right people to build out what those minimum requirements are.
So I'm working with a company that they're at a crossroads of how do they connect everything together. And I said I need to talk to the CTO.
Yeah.
And initially, again, rewind a few years back, that wasn't really something that support or success or experience needed to do. But now with the state of like MCPs and everything connecting and data being able to be shared, being able to be accessed, it makes total sense now that the CTO needs to be connected to customer experience and product needs to be better connected to customer experience so that you can get that information to all the different departments. We're not in silos anymore. We can't be in
Right.
silos anymore. And if we are, we're not going to be able to grow the company.
The way to really position it internally, I think, is you're taking up an engineer's resource, which is time and resource, which is very valuable.
Yeah.
In the short term is going to be a bit of a lift on their end, but I think longer term, the value is they're spending less time trying to get this system built that maybe wasn't the best system for you to begin with. Um, so yeah, totally agree on just kind of not thinking of support or experience as these silos. In fact, most teams nowadays that I speak to are building their own tools and using these MCPs to build out their own automations. And that line is starting to blur a little bit between product and customer experience, in my opinion.
Yeah. And you had mentioned before about not jumping right into AI and thinking about the human processes. So that said, like thinking about the state of the current customer base for Runway, do you feel like customers expect AI support because Runway produces AI generated content, or does it seem like they expect a human interaction because it's an AI driven product?
Our customers are more creatives first. They
Right.
absolutely use technology. They use AI, but they are creatives first. And at the end of the day, what they want is bringing their ideas to life end to end, and ideally with minimal support without having to reach out to anyone. So I wouldn't necessarily say they expect Runway to have AI support. In fact, we have a Discord community that is very strong. Uh, I'll give a shout out to Timothy Hiley, who runs the community. and does a really good job there. So I would actually say that type of human support is expected from the creative community. And when we do roll out AI support, the expectation is not necessarily that it's there, but the expectation is that it's top notch. Like it's got to be, we're an AI company, so the bar is much higher when we roll out an AI platform to support our customers. So that's probably the distinction there in terms of expectations.
Yeah. I used to work at Frame.io and we were surrounded by creatives as well. There was really no reason for folks to get into Frame.io unless they were creating videos. And I started hiring people from production, like people that not only they were in production using the cameras, they understood how to manage a red camera, but they were in
Yeah,
post production. They had an expertise in Premiere or Resolve or something along those lines as well. So yeah, hiring creatives is absolutely crucial when you're in a creative space. You can teach people how to be customer support. And also, if you're in a creative space, you have the mindset of troubleshooting already. Like, how can I figure things out? How can I learn more? How can I expand my horizon, my
exactly.
thought process? So thinking about Discord, it's so funny that you bring that up because so many companies, I see them, they're using Discord. And the only reason why I say that's funny is because I think it was 15 years ago, forums were a really big thing. Before
Yeah,
Reddit actually blew up, every company had their own individual forum.
right.
I also offered Skype support. So, like, let me keep dating myself. We were
Right.
doing phone support, we were doing video Skype support, we had the forum, we had email. Chat wasn't a thing back then. So, it's just like, it's crazy how kind of like forum just kind of came right back in the way that it used to be 15 years ago, a really strong thing for support.
Whenever you have a tool like Runway, and it's really valuable for people to learn from each other, but also from runway experts in our case. Um, that's something that you don't want to lose,
Yeah.
and I'm personally really grateful for that.
Yeah, I feel like customers or users they could open up a little bit more in a forum than they would if they were talking to an AI chat bot or
Exactly.
even through a chat to a human. Like they kind of bring in more flavor, more taste to to the conversation whenever it comes to Discord.
Right.
So thinking about AI, let's transition over. You told me before we started that you launched AI support. It's been quite successful. So tell me what that means in your operation. Like, what did you build? What does it handle? What's the before and after actually look like?
Yeah. So the main reason we built it out was to give our customers faster responses with the same accuracy, ideally, and really just help reduce the amount of interruption that they had throughout the creative process. If you do have a question, you have to wait, even if you have to wait like 30 minutes or 15 minutes, it disrupts the process and you're no longer in that creative mindset. And that's what we wanted to prevent as much as possible. We're getting super fast responses out, but we could see that there was a gap. Like,
Yeah.
so that improving that entire customer experience, really helping customers use the product, that's the ultimate goal there. So documentation was the first piece. If embedding that into the platform before we even rolled out AI was really ideal for us. But then as we started to grow, one of the things that shifted is more of a focus on enterprise support. So we have consumers and enterprise support. And it's a different level of support, different type of questions. And that was another thing that we wanted to address. How do we make sure that we provide excellent support for both cohorts? And AI seemed like the good solution for that, where we can leverage this amazing documentation that we have and have it address those very simple questions like, how do I reset my password? What model should I use for this and that? And then our team became more of like the level 2, level 3 support that could answer all the questions that are a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more complex, may require some of that industry knowledge that maybe the chatbot doesn't have. So to answer your question again, I think it's really scaling the business as we grow, both for consumer and enterprise. And also, number two, making sure that that customer experience remains as uninterrupted as possible.
Yeah, so you had to rewrite the documentation so that AI could find the right information and provide the answers to your customers. So the AI chatbot really handled a lot of the informational questions. Are there any actionable steps that you're providing it to either handle refunds or handle anything like that?
Yeah, actually, exactly that. Refunds and billing questions are a bit of a pain point that you have anytime you're working with consumers, um, especially when most businesses have an auto renewal system, but most customers, even myself included, may forget, like, okay, I need to cancel this. I'm not using it anymore.
Right.
So we have built-in mechanisms, and that's where that engineering partnership comes into play to understand what is this person's usage, when did their account actually renew, and what's the reason for cancellation, so that AI can make a decision. Should this person get a refund or not? Should a human actually evaluate this versus the AI? And we rolled that out, and it's been pretty successful. One of the things that our leadership team was concerned about was, how do we make sure customers don't abuse this? And that's where we built out the mechanisms on our end. So an AI support enables us to do that, but it's really following the strict guidelines that we have in place, and it's more hard coded decisions versus things that the AI can hallucinate. So that's
Yeah.
how we. Those are the sort of guardrails that we have against that.
That's good. Yeah, those guardrails are definitely necessary. There was a company I was talking to that actually did not think about putting those guardrails up, and
Mm.
every single month, these customers figured out that they could just continually ask for a refund, and AI is like, "Sure, here you go," and they could just keep on using the product. And they realized that I think 6 months in, that there was
Oh,
a lot of customers just they're like, "What is this number going up so high?" And our user count is not going down. So,
yeah. Don't get me
so
wrong.
yeah,
I'm a little paranoid about that too, and every every week or so, I'm like checking our reporting, making sure there's no spikes. I think everyone has to do that anyway. The technology can go wrong.
it's so funny as being in customer experience, you don't have to think about what are the people's best intentions. You got to think about what are their absolute worst intentions and how are they
Unfortunately,
going to
yeah,
game the system and how are we going to mitigate that, fix it, and make sure that you think about every wrong possible scenario to
right.
solve for. It's wild that not a lot of people have to think that way, but
Yeah,
support and experienced folks definitely have to think like that.
there's always that one person or group of people that finds a way to break the system. So
Oh, yeah.
I hope you're not listening to this podcast if that's you.
Definitely. So thinking about things that could go wrong, like can you share with us a moment where maybe you failed forward with AI? You learned quick, you fixed it, and or you changed something.
Yeah, so we were prioritizing for making sure that AI can handle as many questions as possible. And one thing that I think we could have done a better job at, which we did quickly adjust on, was that handoff process. What does it actually look like when the customer goes from AI support to human support? And how do we make sure that there's no frustration in that handoff process? I always think back to phone support. Even now, with all the technology that we have in place, you have situations where you're giving your order number and then you're handed off to somebody else and you have to repeat it all over again.
Yep.
And then the cycle repeats maybe two, three times. It's a huge pain. And unfortunately, that's kind of what was happening with our system in AI. We were making that handoff, and we had our team having to go back into the AI system to check for that context or ask questions that were already answered by the customer during that AI chat. We quickly identified that. I think first week or so, it was pretty obvious to what was going on there. And we built in systems to really make sure that we optimize the AI not just for having those conversations, but for aggregating the information that we're getting, submitting that information as an internal note to our team, including attachments that the customer may have submitted, and really making it very easy for the team to just quickly scan the summary instead of the entire conversation to
Yeah.
understand what's going on and really speed up the process. And that has vastly improved the customer experience, the perception of AI versus the human support as well.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, I mean, it could be going back and forth 11 rounds of replies, and
Right.
you want to spend all that time reading paragraphs and links, and oh wait, that's not what you were asking for. Let's get down to the real nitty gritty. Yeah, the summary is absolutely crucial for sure.
Right.
Yeah. So thinking about signals, I want to kind of shift things to what you said matters most. You told me that what is unresolved for you is scaling without losing that signal. So now that
Mhm.
AI handles most of the volume or more of the volume, what's the risk to that signal? Do you feel like there are signals that you're concerned about losing?
For sure. And I think this is an ongoing thought exercise, basically going through conversations manually. I use Discord as a signal now as well to understand and compare what are we seeing in the community, what are we seeing in our AI conversations, because AI in general thinks it's really smart. It knows all the answers. It knows exactly what it needs to do, and it just doesn't. And I feel like if you're rolling out any sort of AI, you have to understand that it
Absolutely.
is a process where you have to iterate, you have to understand, you have to look at the data. Um, if it's having a conversation with a customer and just going back and forth and being very confident in giving these resources, having no context on what bugs we have in the system, or maybe this requires a different approach. Those are the types of signals that I'm looking for. And there are systems in place where you can capture those signals to a certain extent. Um, but there's so much nuance in that as well. There's so much nuance in the signals in general. When you're having a conversation with a person, when everything came through human support, the team would just have conversations like, what are you all seeing today? Um, everyone's complaining about generations taking longer than usual. Oh yeah, I saw a couple of tickets about that too. Whereas with the AI support, it may default to the typical, you're having generation issues. It's probably your browser or something like that. And it may respond to 50 customers that way before anyone
Mm,
realizes maybe there is actually an issue going on there. So that's something that I think we need to get better at in our team, but I think across the entire industry and I think we're getting there. AI is constantly improving, is capturing those signals. And if you're not able to, doing the hard work of just going through things manually, talking to customers yourself, um, making sure that your team is extra vigilant about the conversations that they're having, versus just going through the motions. So there's only so much technology can do, but at the same time, there's a lot that it can do to address those types of issues.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it loses that gut feeling, right? It
Right.
loses
Yeah.
that human gut feeling, or even like, that
Something's
doesn't
off here.
seem
Yeah.
right. This is the third conversation I've had about that.
Hmm.
Maybe it's something else. Nope. AI is like, this is the answer.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So even to that point, like an unresolved, and maybe this is solved, and somebody doesn't know, like I don't know about it yet. Maybe like there's a spike in an issue,
Hmm.
and it tells the support system, "Hey, this is what's going on. You might see this." Right. It
Right.
might be great to have that kind of connection. I'm not sure that any product is there yet, but that'd be great to have that intuition. Hey, seeing an issue over here, and it just lets it know, and it's like, oh, okay, maybe I should think about a good gut feeling response to this, or even
Yeah.
notify folks in customer experience, this is what's going on. And there's some kind of a red flag, either through like a Slack or Teams or Discord or something along those lines. Like it'd be great to have all of the signals from all of the platforms working together and being like, hey, red flag over here, something going on. Of
Yeah. Well, I am kind of working on something myself
course you
with,
are.
we've
That's
got,
awesome.
everyone's got an LLM integration and an account in companies nowadays. And we get a lot of leeway and are able to just build things out. Everyone on my team builds things out. I am jumping on the bandwagon myself and building things out. It's easy to put the excuse like, I don't have time for this, but you really have to make the time for things like
Yeah,
this. Is super important to capture those
exactly.
signals. And if it doesn't exist, you can build it yourself. There's really not an excuse nowadays.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have one last question for you, Robert. And
Yeah.
it's if you could describe the ideal customer experience in Runway, and maybe it doesn't exist today, but it's like think forward motion. How do you want the customer's experience to actually look like, even though like maybe the technology is not there today? Like, what would that workflow look like? Would it be every action identified with defined solutions to be highly autonomous, which it doesn't feel like that for like the creatives, or would it look like more customer sentiment and signals being able to be detected that require that common sense and a human touch to to respond? Like, what does that customer experience look like for Runway in a future state?
I've said this in general, but I think the best customer experience, no matter where you are, is where you're just doing what you need to do and you're done and you leave. That's it. You don't have to worry about how do I contact the support team or what kind of documentation can I find. The product is just so intuitive that um, you really only have to reach out to the team for those super nuanced, complex questions that you have. And maybe that's through some sort of proactive support where you're working very closely with AI and with your product team to identify, hey, it looks like this customer is stuck in this page. They've tried to generate something like 4 different times. Maybe we should offer a suggestion based on what prompt they're using and um, how long they've been going at it for. We may have enough documentation and resources to give a proactive suggestion or help them on the right path, maybe suggest a different model. So that's how I consider that's the best experience in my opinion. I think it's more of a matter of when we'll get there. I do think it's pretty possible, but that's kind of how I see it. Like you have a support partner that can just jump in and help you out whenever you need it before you even think of asking.
Yeah. Yeah, you're on the right track because I've been thinking about the same exact thing. If you think about Photoshop, and anytime somebody thinks about Photoshop, they see 100 plus buttons and
Right.
options. Like you really have to become an expert before you could even do 10% in the product.
Yep.
And if you thought about if you could just explain or prompt, this is what I'm trying to do. Here's a
Hmm.
couple of options of images or something. Can you layer things together? And then my thought process is that Photoshop would kind of like here's the history stamp and you could go back to that history and change it, so you're not actually you're learning how to use the product through prompt
Right.
versus having to figure out what every button actually does. And
Yeah.
maybe it's even like adding gradients the way that it needs to be added. I, I was trying to turn a picture into a stamp, a rubber stamp, and it took me 4 hours in Photoshop the other day, and I ended up hand drawing it because I couldn't figure out an option to make it look like a rubber stamp.
We
So
need to have a runway session together.
absolutely, yeah. So yeah, like I think you're on the right track. I think that product is going to be so integrated into the customer experience that it's going to be like, wait, you did this, and you did it again.
Yeah.
So what are we trying to achieve? And let's do that together. I really feel like that's where the products are starting to head now.
Yeah. And I can't help but think of the annoying paperclip that Windows had. It was,
Clippy.
I think I remember it being helpful sometimes. If we were able to do something like that back then, I mean, there's no reason why we can't build out something like this experience.
Yeah, yeah. I use Notion, and I think of Notion's little icon as being Clippy. For me, that's my
Yeah.
Clippy.
Yeah.
Robert, I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today, and I
Yeah. Thanks
love
for having me.
that you're sharing what's actually in progress, not just what's solved, and that distinction that you made between what AI can answer, what AI should answer. It's something that this audience is thinking about, and I love even the proactive thought about what customer experience should look like within a product. I think there's so many folks that are in the same boat. We just got to figure out if the tooling is there yet, or if we're just not doing something right. And
Yeah.
hopefully, we can bring in some answers. You can connect with Robert on LinkedIn, and that link is in the description. Robert, is there anything else you want to share? Is there anywhere else people can find you?
Uh, yeah. I mean, first of all, thanks for having me. Really hope that this was helpful for anyone listening. I do also have a Beyond the Queue blog that I try to post to on a weekly basis if anyone's interested.
Awesome. That link's going to be in the description as well. That wraps up today's episode. Subscribe to hear more incredible stories in the era of Unresolved. Have a great day and a productive week.